Welcome everyone to today's Healthy Aging Lumia vlog. Thank you so much for listening in. Today I am talking again to the lovely Kirsty Wilson. And Kirsty, if you've not been watching these vlogs before, please go back and have a nosy, because Kirsty and I have spoken about quite a few topics over the last kind of 4 or 5 months. Because obviously this vlog's about healthy aging, and you know, Kirsty is better known as the Midlife Transformer, which I just love that name. And so Kirsty works with women kind of going through the menopause, and women kind of 40 plus, I would say, which is really as we are aging, as we're going through our middle years. And she's kind of, I would say, an expert in so many areas when it comes to healthy aging. And that's why we've had so many chats. If you like, we've tried to break it down. We've spoken about sleep, we've spoken about stress, we've spoken about exercise. But today, we were going to focus a bit more on nutrition. Now, again, that in itself is a massive area, as we know, and can be quite overwhelming, no matter what age you are, to be honest. And I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because we've almost got too much information now that you're like, oh, kind of where do I start? So, Kirsty, in your usual practical way, I was hoping that you would kind of help us just now understand, as we're going through these years of our life and obviously our body's going through changes, what would you kind of say, Kirsty, if we're going to make a few simple changes, what would you say were like the important ones that we should really be doing?
You hear me now?
That's you, go for it.
No, it's it's very easy to go full steam ahead and delve into every single bit of the minutiae of what we should be eating as a midlife woman. And I see it all the time in nutritionists out there in the medical profession with this big checklist. Now, I'm going to go through some of that checklist as well, because the information these professionals are giving out isn't wrong. But I think it can, like you say, be totally overwhelming for ladies. And like you say, not just menopausal ladies, but everyone. And, you know, we're bombarded all day, not always from the most reliable sources. So, you know, one of the huge things that's really, really important for midlife health and well-being is actually to have a balanced plate, as it is for everyone. But why it becomes more important in this stage of life is maybe when we were younger, we said, right, we want to get the bikini diet going for the summer, we want to fit into the little black dress at Christmas, and we just done things radical, like cutting out carbs from our plate. We cut out the rice, the potatoes, and that sort of thing, the chips, the bread. And of course, because we cut them out, we cut out calories and we lost weight. Now we head into a problem area of our lives that if we start cutting out carbohydrates, we aren't giving the body its main source of energy. And at a time where maybe be fatigued, we might be struggling for energy for exercise, then we do not want to be cutting out the body's main source of energy. So at this stage in your life, it's more about thinking about what we can add into the diet rather than restrict it. So I'm kind of going to look at today about not necessarily people that want a fat loss fix. The same rules apply to whether you want to lose fat or not. It's just the people that want to lose fat potentially have to look at eating less of what they're, you know, I'm going to recommend. But it's actually more complicated than that as well. And I would always suggest with women that we actually start with one meal in the day. So if you're going to start improving your diet overall, start with one meal. Now, I love starting with breakfast not because it's this holy grail that it kickstarts your metabolism, and there's lots of other myths around breakfast out there, but when we eat a decent balanced breakfast, it sets us up for the day in the sense that if we are full, if we're satisfied, then it should keep us going all the way to lunchtime. So it sets that ball in motion, if you like. Now, what does a healthy breakfast look like? The very same as a healthy lunch and dinner look like. So if we think of your standard sized dinner plate or bowl, we want to be having a quarter of that as protein. And I'm going to speak more about what that might look like. A quarter of that is our carbohydrate, and a half is our vitamins and minerals, so our fruit and veg. So that applies to no matter what meal you're having. So for breakfast, you know, that could mean, 2 to 3 eggs. It might be a slice of whole grain toast. It might be some spinach and tomato on the side, but it also might be a side portion of fruit. It might be some Greek yogurt with fruit and a mixture of nuts and seeds. It could be some Ryvita bread with smoked salmon and avocado with a Greek yogurt on the side. And it's not about saying, well, how much of these things are to have. It's about eating, enjoying it, making sure it's digested properly by eating slowly, and actually tuning into your body and saying, do I feel satisfied? Is that going to keep me going to lunchtime? So the rules are, with a balanced plate, that we want the protein, we want the carbohydrate, and we want the vegetables. The other thing that we need to think about as well is our healthy fats. We shouldn't be trying to exclude fats from the diet. And so many of us at this age have been brought up in that culture. And our mothers, it's not to blame, but that culture of diet and everything low fat, low fat, low fat. Now, low fat alternatives, are going to play their place at some point in this stage of life, because we're at a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. So we want to be controlling our cholesterol, our intake of saturated fats. But healthy fat should play a part in every meal. And I usually would get that from my olive oil, my oily fish, my avocado, and again, my nuts and seeds. But, a teaspoon here or there is enough of those. We don't, because again, we're talking about calorie dense food when we talk about fat. So the Mediterranean style diet, if anyone just sticks that into Google, they'll probably get a good idea of the diet that, I get clients working towards. And I'm saying diet, a way of eating.
Yeah.
So lots of healthy nuts, seeds, fishes, oils, legumes, cereals, that sort of thing. Lots of fresh fruit and veg, the way that we eat or like to eat, or we see people eating when we're on holiday in Europe.
Yeah. And I think the challenge as well is, for so many people, there's so much variety out there of processed foods, and we're all really busy, and you think, oh, I'll just grab that, whatever. And sometimes you look at the ingredients at the back and you think, I always remember reading something that said, if you can't pronounce an ingredient, don't eat it. But I think it's all Marks and Spencer's counting us, all the stuff, and it appears to look healthy, but I think as the older we get, the more we do realise, as you say, the less processed the better. Stick to having more of your fruit and veg.
Actually, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I'll have maybe ladies coming to me and they'll say, well, I have a healthy breakfast. I have like a low-fat yogurt and maybe some granola and fruit. And I mean, on surface value, on face value, you might say, well, actually, that's not too bad. But when you start to dig deep and realise it's like a low-fat processed yogurt that's had all the fat removed through it, so not natural at all, and all the sugar added back in, or artificial sweeteners, and a bit of granola is maybe not going to do you any harm, but how much you have in, potentially a lot of simple sugars in there. And if we actually start looking at full-fat Greek yogurt with some chia seeds and almonds, for example, with some berries, it's a very similar breakfast, but a lot more wholesome. And actually, science is backing more and more every day that actually all calories aren't equal. So I also admit, as a trainer in years gone by, when I was a younger lady and it doesn't impact you so much, that flexible dieting was my thing. Although I ate mainly wholesome foods, I would have said, as long as I'm under my calories and losing weight, as long as I'm maintaining them. And actually, as we move into middle life and we learn more about nutrition science, it's not the case. Calories from processed food are not treated in the body the same way as wholesome foods are. So we should be trying to keep our food as wholesome as possible. These processed foods, it's no coincidence that we have the highest levels of obesity in the UK and America, because we eat the highest amount of processed foods. Other countries don't have these, like Italy, Switzerland. We don't have these levels of obesity because people are eating much more wholesome foods.
Yeah.
And as much as I am very empathetic towards women that have dieted their whole life, women that are making small changes, I definitely also believe that there comes a time and a place and an age where we need to assume responsibility for our health, and eating whole foods reduces our long-term risk of chronic health conditions like heart disease and Alzheimer's and all sorts of cardiovascular disease. So, there does become a point we've got to take responsibility for that.
Absolutely. And I think my big excuse was always, I'm a rubbish cook. I'm always like, can't cook. And that was kind of my get a jail card, get a jail free card. But I've actually been using a lot of, in recent years, the kind of home delivery service like HelloFresh and Gusto and stuff like that. And they are brilliant because they help you believe you can cook for a start.
Yeah.
And it takes out that thought process of going to the shops and getting all the stuff. And it's usually pretty balanced because there's always a veg, there's always, I'm not saying it's all perfect, but I do feel as if even with that, and I remember listening to you doing a talk once before, and you were talking about the benefits of frozen veg, and you're like, just a frozen veg in your freezer. And that's something, since listening to you, I always have now. Because I think, like, no matter what you've got, you can always, it's there. It's in the freezer, it's fresh. Just chuck it on, and whatever you're having, just know that you're adding a wee bit of veg. Even though it's not the healthiest meal, it's always something that's easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely my biggest advice is go crazy in the fruit and veg aisles, but that also means your frozen food. It can also mean your tinned fruit. Just steer away from the ones that are laden in syrup, and also steering and using things like that you maybe wouldn't have normally eaten. So when we actually look in the tinned area and pay attention to it, there's probably things in there that you never even clicked existed, like black-eyed peas and taco beans, and it's just about adding them in. I wouldn't have liked to thought them in their own. Legumes don't really, appeal to me that much, but I'll shove in now a whole tin of taco beans in when I'm making a chili, veg or otherwise. And the thing, I'm going to come back to when we're talking about calories not being equal, there's just so much evidence now that actually in middle age in particular, our gut health is such a huge player, not just in our future health predictions, but also in the way we lose fat. So we have to look after our gut bacteria, and the best way to do that is actually by eating lots of fruit and veg. It's no longer, genetics play some part, right? So you eat one meal and I eat one meal, our bodies respond totally different. Genetics do play some part in that, but don't play as big a part as you think. So our gut health actually plays a bigger part. But the beauty of that is our gut health, we can improve, we can change. But if we think about now what I've said about a balanced plate, about getting lots of fruit and veg in easier ways, but there is another couple of things, more than a couple of things that we should point out for midlife nutrition. And one is, and I think I mentioned this in the exercise vlog we did, but making sure that we are getting our calcium and our vitamin D. So the vitamin D is going to almost come in a capsule form when we live in Scotland, because we don't get enough of those sunshine hours. Our calcium should be coming from a food source, but actually you have to really be quite focused on that, because under 50, we need 700 milligrams a day, which is actually equivalent to a portion of broccoli, half a tin of sardines and a large yogurt. But actually over 50, it's nearly double that. So if you're not getting the calcium you need, it's something you maybe want to talk to your doctor about, a calcium supplementation.
It's funny you're saying as well there about, sorry to interrupt you, Kirsty, but you're saying, did you say broccoli there is a source of calcium?
Yeah.
I think it's so funny though, because I do think we're all a bit conditioned just to think calcium with dairy.
Yeah. So, the broccoli would fall into the group of vegetables known as calciferous vegetables, but you do need to eat a fair amount of them. But a cup size of broccoli, or a good old portion of broccoli, is going to get you, it's not broken into portions, because if you eat like a whole tub of actual yogurt, you might be nearly there for a day. But it doesn't mean I go about eating broccoli or sardines every day. But one day I might have a latte, and that's one of my portions.
Yeah.
And do I hit it every day? No, but the other days I have more. Mm-hmm. Iron has also been shown to be really important in bone health. Insufficiencies in iron have been linked to less bone tissue. Now, we don't want to go about popping iron supplements because they can cause their own issues. So we want to try to get enough diet, and it's not all red meat. Again, lots of green veggies, and even things like kidney beans, chickpeas, and baked potatoes. These sort of kind of non-meat products are high in iron as well. So we're talking about balanced plate now. We're talking about lots of fruit and veg. We're talking about calcium, vitamin D, iron. And what else is a big consideration in midlife is the most important one is your sugar consumption. And I think we need to point this out, because a lot of people that are maybe struggling with fat loss at this stage, it might be something they want to look into. So again, you could eat something really sugary and I could eat it, and our bodies both respond in a different way. But when our hormones are playing havoc too, we want to do everything we can to try and maintain blood glucose levels. So a top tip that I'm going to give for there is, see if you like your sweet treats and you're not willing to eliminate them from your diet, which I'm not yet. I love my chocolate, is I have it right after my meal. So that protein component that I'm having, maybe the tin of tuna at lunchtime or the mince with my bolognese at dinner time, if I eat my sweet treat right after it, because I've consumed that protein, ate it with, and that's basically going to maintain my blood sugar levels a lot better than, imagine I just eat that bag of Maltesers at night. My blood sugar is going to potentially peak quite high, which could wake me up during the night, but also I get those mood dips and swings that are already in menopause all over the place. So when I say avoid sugars, your rice, your potato, your pasta, your vegetables, fruit are all sugars. That's not what I mean. I mean your cakes, your biscuits, the things that aren't
the good stuff.
The things that your wine, the things that aren't giving you any nutritional benefit. Fruit is also simple sugar, but obviously when we have fruit, we're also getting the benefits of all the goodness that's given us, right? But for clients, it may be, for me, we've controlled food, we've got them exercising, we've got stress to a minimum, and things maybe aren't happening the way they should be, then we start to look at, maybe, is there simple sugar consumption coming at the right times, or are they potentially having a bit too many sweet treats?
And that's what I like about you, Kirsty. You know, you give people options because you live in the real world, and you know, you see so many of these, you know, books and authors that strike sugar. Sugar is the devil, and I'm sure there's millions of studies on sugar, and we know that too many simple sugars is bad for us, but it's almost too extreme for most of us, isn't it?
Yeah,
to ban simple sugar. So if we can, I like the fact you can give us tips like doing that, eating along with a meal that, you know, is improving our situation.
yeah, absolutely. Because there's no point, if you're someone that eats a lot of chocolate every day, you're unlikely just to cut it out altogether. I mean, don't get me wrong. As I continue to progress through the menopause, then, you know, I will probably have to look at cutting down my, you know, consumption of sweet things, and I've accepted that. I know they're not the best for me anyway. The rest of my diet is good, so you know, the balance is in there, but it might be one of these things that's got to give. I mean, I've decided to cut right back in the alcohol recently, and that's one of the reasons, and also for my sleep. And I mean, as you know, I thoroughly enjoy my wine at the weekend, or maybe a few here and there through the week, but it is, again, that assuming responsibility for your own health, the way you feel, and of course the way you look, which is important to most of us ladies, right?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
You know, it's a bit of a stop tour, but
I know, no, I appreciate it, Kirsty. I do appreciate it. It's great to talk like this because I just feel like, you know, it's not overly complicated, and the way that you talk about healthy aging, I think, really resonates with most of us. So I'm very grateful for your time. Thank you so much. And as always, Kirsty's details are down below for anybody who fancies giving her a follow. As I say, she's brilliant on Instagram, she's brilliant on Facebook, loads of daily tips, and yeah, it's a great person to follow. So thank you so much, Kirsty, and hopefully I'll speak to you soon.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.